Despite getting off to a good start, Samsung's last year was pretty rough. Now 2017 is upon us, and in order to truly move on, Samsung had to nail its new flagship smartphones, the S8 and the S8 Plus. After all, these are the first phones the company will release since the Note 7 debacle came to a close. Now, we spent a few hours playing with these new phones, and while there were very few surprises, I still came away very, very impressed. Let's get the really juicy stuff out of the way first. We don't know how much these phones will cost, but you'll be able to pre-order them in the US starting on March 30th, with an official launch coming on April 21st. Got it? Let's move on. All of the leaked renders and photos don't do these phones justice. The fit and finish is incredible. Remember how the front and back edges of the Note 7 sort of melted into the metal frame running around the phone? Well, the effect here is very similar, it's just made more striking by how thin these phones are. Now that's doubly insane when you consider it has one of Samsung's gorgeous new 5.8-inch Infinity displays that's running at 2960 by 1440, and there's a 3000 mAh battery in there just like the S7. There's barely any bezel between that beautiful mobile HDR certified screen and the rest of the phone's face, and I gotta tell you, the glass's gentle curve only adds to the appeal. If LG's G6 was a flat slab of stone, then the Galaxy S8 is a polished river rock. As you probably knew, the S8 packs one of Qualcomm's Snapdragon 835 chipsets, along with 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of internal storage. Well, in the US anyway. Versions available elsewhere will have one of Samsung's octa-core Exynos chips. Anyway, some of you will be glad to know that there's still a headphone jack here and a microSD card slot that'll take up to 256 GB of extra storage. And all of you should be glad that the phone is still water and dust resistant. All of that good stuff applies to the S8 too, the bigger model with a whopping 6.2-inch screen and a 3500 mAh battery. That is to say, it's just as impressive to hold and feel, and spoiler alert, it fits neatly into a pocket. Sure, this screen might not be technically as pixel dense as the smaller S8s, but A, there's really no way most people would ever tell, and B, this just might be the most comfortable big phone I've ever held, so it's kind of worth it. The iPhone 7 Plus I usually carry felt like a whale by comparison. The combination of Qualcomm's new chip and a seemingly lighter new version of TouchWiz mean the S8 and the S8 Plus just fly. The updated interface, by the way, is actually really handsome. It's not quite as loud as older designs, and the new icons and fonts and widget choices make TouchWiz feel more mature. Since both the S8 and the S8 Plus have curved edge screens, there's really no need for a distinct edge model anymore, so it makes sense that all those edge shortcuts have found their way here too. I'm still not sold on their usefulness, but hey, it's nice to know that they're around waiting. We couldn't benchmark these things yet, but even unfinished, I couldn't get them to hiccup or stutter. For now, in terms of design and performance, the S8 and S8 Plus continually impressed. To tell the story of the Galaxy S8s is to tell the story of Bixby, the virtual assistant Samsung has been working on for what feels like ages. You can invoke him, or her, or it, by hitting a button on the S8's left side or by saying its name aloud. Now, I feel compelled at this time to just point out, Bixby, that's not a great name for an AI. It sort of evokes this weird image of a genteel British butler when, in fact, the assistant we have here is capable of so much more. Samsung says you'll eventually be able to control the phone with your voice as capably as you could by tapping the screen with your fingers, which is, well, pretty impressive. Bixby will even get you part way to that task you wanted to complete, even if it can't understand every part of your command. To be clear, the Bixby we played with was far from done. When it launches, you'll be able to ask it for photos from your last trip to Hong Kong or to launch apps. Bixby will also live on your home screen, tracking your steps and offering suggestions to you when it starts to understand your behavior. Do you call certain people the same time every day? Expect Bixby to notice and remind you. The S8s we played with weren't quite that far along, but another part, Bixby Vision, actually worked pretty well. Long story short, Bixby will recognize things like products, restaurants, and landmarks and offer more information about them. Let's say you're on the train and looking at a book someone is reading, you could use Bixby to learn more about the author or find a link to buy it. It's similar to something Amazon did with its Fire Phone back in the day, except, people are actually going to buy these phones. Depending on your taste, not every change here is a step forward from the Galaxy S7 line. The S8's fingerprint sensors are on the back to the right of the camera, and reaching it with your index finger can be a little awkward. The traditional home button is gone too. Instead, you've got a small pressure-sensitive strip of screen at the bottom you can press while on any screen to jump right back out front. It takes a little getting used to since you have to know the home button is just there waiting for you, but I don't think I'm going to be losing any sleep over it. Samsung also said the 12-megapixel dual-pixel cameras in the S8s really aren't all that different from the cameras we got in last year's flagships. Now, in fairness, last year's cameras were already among the best we've used, but if Samsung is going to push out new stuff each year, it can't blame us for being mildly disappointed when things don't change that much. That said, Samsung has apparently tweaked the way photos are processed, which should make for slightly better colors and clarity throughout. And since we live in an age where Snapchat and Instagram reign supreme, you can add goofy filters to your face when using the improved 8-megapixel front-facing camera. It helps that it autofocuses on your mug when you're snapping selfies. Samsung also cooked up a system called DeX, and just tell me if this sounds familiar. You plop the phone in a dock, connect a monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and get stuff done on a phone-powered desktop. We've seen so many other companies try this and frankly screw it all up, but Samsung's hybrid approach to Android on the desktop seems surprisingly fast and deeply impressive, so go watch our other video about it. If all of this sounds like a lot, well, it's just the beginning. By looking at the level of polish and poise baked into these phones, you easily get a sense of just how important Samsung believe these phones are. These are, in many ways, Samsung's attempts at redemption. And while memories of burning notes still linger, Samsung's future seems full of promise. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our full review.